I think this is easy, Wes, and it's the Brooklyn Nets.
I'm with you. That's who
I think
that was number one on my board.
this team is going to be horrendous, and that's good for the team. This team is going to suck, and it's good that they're going to suck.
I think looking at this roster,
Let's run through. I think we should run through the roster.
Do we have to?
Let's get depressed. Like honestly, just like it's
all right.
They have
go ahead.
Like it's Dennis Schroeder,
Yeah.
Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas.
I'm already depressed.
Bojan Bogdanovic, Nick Claxton, Dorian Finney-Smith, who's probably going to get traded, Cameron Thomas, who is, I think, a trade candidate and has been discussed with Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken. Keon Johnson, Jalen Martin, Shake Milton, Daron Sharp.
All right, we've reached the point of no return. So look, it's a great point you made. Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Thomas, even Dennis Schroeder, all of these guys could get traded in the middle of the year. And I think their best player is Nick Claxton. He might be their only top 100 player. When we get NBA Rank and The Ringer and the Washington Post, Sports Illustrated, like all these places start putting out their top 100 players, the Nets will probably only have one guy in it, and that'd be Claxton. And by the way, the Brooklyn Nets would say, yeah, we know. Thank you very much for noticing. This is the plan. They want to be bad. I think Brooklyn had one of the best off seasons in the NBA, frankly.
Yeah.
Because they nailed it. Like, they knew what the assignment was, and they crushed it. They got really bad. They have no franchise players of maybe outside of, depends on what they think of Claxton, who they did re-sign. I think that was a good move for them. But they got a new coach who they really like, who's ready to suffer through this season but build for the future. And they positioned themselves for Cooper Flagg by trading all of their protected picks from Phoenix and future picks from Phoenix back to Houston for their own picks. So now they're in prime tanking mode. A team that could not tank before can now tank, and they're in control of their future. They own all their picks now. I think it was a great slam dunk offseason for them. But according to plan, they're my best bet for finishing the season with the fewest amount of wins. And by the way, BetMGM has their over-under set at the lowest mark at 19.5. And I think they're the only team under 20 wins, which is pretty remarkable. It's hard not to win 20 games in the NBA. But, hey, I mean, two teams did it last year in Detroit and Washington. I'm sure Brooklyn can do it, too, if they really want to.
I'm thinking about an under on 19.5 for Brooklyn.
Yeah, look, they're going to be trying, right?
Yeah.
They're literally going to be trying to win as few games as possible. So I think that's a really good under. I almost think it's almost a lock, considering that they're also probably going to make some deals mid-season also. So this team's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
Yeah, and even if, like, I would trade Dorian Finney-Smith for, like, 2 or 3 seconds at this point if I were them.
Sure,
I would just get him, get some more assets, get some lottery tickets, let Cam Thomas take 35 shots a game. And, you know, it's going to be miserable for you, but at least you have the liberty as, like, a good basketball team playing in Barclays, and you can spin this forward. And like, they need to get a Cooper Flagg. Like, they tried the shortcut route of getting Kevin Durant and getting James Harden, getting Kyrie. It obviously went haywire for a bunch of different reasons. Kevin's foot on the line, the pandemic, Harden, getting salt, all that. We all know this. We know how good they were for the very brief window they're together, but it didn't last. This is not a franchise that I think we can say, like, unless that happens again, is necessarily a free agency destination. It just hasn't proven to be the case. Kind of Clippers East to some degree, where it's been like a one-off thing where that has happened. Their best chance of, like, really building something in Brooklyn is to, you know, whether it's Cooper Flagg or not, but, like, if they get Cooper Flagg, there's a lot of work still to do to support what he's going to be. That's maybe why, like, a Cam Johnson or someone sticks around. But, like, that is the thing that they need, and they should be, they I think, more than anyone else, maybe Washington, which is slightly a tip of pick, or, like, some of these other teams, but they have to be all out in getting that guy. Like, they need a player like Cooper Flagg to really put them in a direction, because otherwise I think they're going to be stuck here forever. Like, they should not be a team that should be, if Donovan Mitchell's, like, unhappy in a year, they should not be the team that's trying to get Donovan Mitchell. They should just keep sucking until they get their lottery ticket on a Cooper Flagg level guy.
And I don't think their plan is to go after that again, right? Because you mentioned the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving experiment. It also didn't work out when they did it with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. This is a team that has routinely tried to go get established stars, and it just the rug was snapped out from under them. And I don't think that's the plan. And by the way, it doesn't need to be Cooper Flagg, right? Like, this draft is supposed to be loaded. There's going to be 3 franchise guys, or apparently there's supposed to be 3 franchise type guys in this draft. So even if they don't end up getting Cooper Flagg, which is the obvious prize, if they end up with a bottom 3 pick or a top 3 pick, whatever, in this draft, then they'll be in good position to not only get that player, but also build with some more players. The other thing about this Brooklyn Nets team is you look at the young players they have. Like, you're not thinking any of these young guys are going to blossom to the point where they actually start winning new games. The same could be said for even Cameron Johnson, Cam Thomas, and Dorian Finney-Smith. Those are fine players, right? Those are good rotation caliber NBA players. They're not winning you a ton of games. So you can also hold on to them right up until the February trade deadline and get the most value out of them as possible, whether it's a couple of second-round picks, or maybe there's a team that's desperate enough out there that's willing to give you sort of a late first-round pick or something like that, or a future distant protected first somewhere else. But they're in good position to get some more stuff, but also in good position to lose a lot of games. I'm going to go with my first pick here. I'm not going to overthink this. I'm going with the Washington Wizards.
Oh, yeah, they're going to be ass.
Yes, they are. And another team that started their rebuild maybe a year earlier than Brooklyn, maybe a year too early. I don't know. No, not a year too early. Several years too late.
Yes.
By trading Bradley Beal to Phoenix, they traded for Jordan Poole in that deal, Chris Paul, whatever. I don't need to rehash it. This team is not good. It is aggressively not good. And it was last year aggressively unserious. And I think they got a little bit more serious by adding vets like Jonas Valanciunas and Malcolm Brogdon. And I do like those moves for them in terms of building a culture or trying to establish that and get this team on the right track. I think that is so important, and arguably, well, not argue. I think it is more important than any winning that this team can do this season. They just need to be a more serious organization. And obviously winning eventually will help them do that, but they got to get it on the right track. Alex Sarr with their second pick in the draft, that was fine.
Can I read you his summer league stats?
I'd prefer you didn't, but let's go ahead.
9 of 47 from the field.
Okay.
So that's 20. He had a 22.6% true shooting percentage. And he had a PR of 3.8. The PR was the worst mark of any first rounder at Summer League.
Look, Alex Sarr is probably the 9th pick in most decent NBA drafts. The fact that he was in consideration for the first overall pick speaks to how weak this draft was, and it was sort of why I joked earlier that maybe they started their tank a little too early. Alex Sarr is not going to be the foundational piece of this team. I'm not even just saying that off of Summer League. I didn't see anything with him in his overseas career that led me to believe that this guy is the future face of a franchise. I think he could be a good defender, solid enough offensive player that he could be a helpful player to a good team one day. But he's very far from that point. And I think this team is also potentially another seller candidate, like the Brooklyn Nets at the trade deadline. Kyle Kuzma is just sitting there for a good team to scoop up. Jordan Poole is going to continue to lose games for this team as long as he has the ball in his hands. I like some of the pieces. I like Corey Kispert, also maybe a sell candidate. I like Bub Carrington as a draft pick quite a bit, but he's not going to move the needle that much for this team. I don't know. This team feels like it is starting to acquire a direction. It's starting to kind of set on a direction on the compass, but it's very far from getting anywhere. And you know what? I said a lot of words. I think you said it best at the start, Chris. This team stinks.
I believe my exact words were they're going to be ass, but
Okay.
You said it more sophisticated.
No, I think they're both accurate descriptions of this team. And I feel bad for Washington Wizards fans because this team has been impossible to watch for a very long time, and I don't see that getting very much better.
Over-under is at 22.5, plus 105 for the over, minus 125 for the under, as of right now from our friends at BetMGM. The latest Rookie of the Year odds from BetMGM that I can find, Wes, and perhaps I'm getting these wrong, but here I'm just going to read you Rookie of the Year, and this tells you where Sarr, he opened up as a favorite, number 1 pick, and this shifted. Zach Edey plus 600, Reed Shepherd plus 650, Zachary Shea plus 800, Buzelis plus 900, Dalton Connect at plus 900, and Alex Sarr plus 1,000.
Yeah, and I wouldn't touch that Alex Sarr pick even a little bit. I don't know
No.
what he's going to do to earn Rookie of the Year right now, but yeah, it's not awesome for Washington, but the plan right now at least is to be bad for several years. And if they get a Cooper Flagg, then this whole thing looks different. But right now, it's just going to be a tough year.
All right, my next pick. Couple ways you go here, but a team I feel very sure is going to be just bad, and part of it is because their talent's a little weird, is the Portland Trail Blazers. And I would really like the Portland Trail Blazers. I kind of just like when the Blazers are good. I can't really tell you why that's the case. I don't know why I have a soft spot for Portland West, but I look at this roster, and there's guys that I like. I think Jeremy Grant as like a serviceable veteran is a good thing, but it feels like he might get traded at some point, perhaps to the LA Lakers. Like that just feels like a thing that might happen at some point. I look at I was a Scoot Henderson guy last year. I think there's still something there. Last year can't all just be his whole story, but it wasn't an encouraging start. The Denny Avdija move is a good piece, but is he really adding wins to your team? No, he's just like I think a solid guy who I think could maybe flip again if a better team came and wanted him. DeAndre Ayton he's just kind of there, like he is the most I'm the kind of their player to me in the league in a lot of ways right now. You still have Shaedon Sharpe, who has a ton of upside, but how many wins is he adding you this year? Simons is there, who, and again, another trade candidate and more of a score guy. And then I like Klingon a lot, but is Klingon as a rookie, he might be really good, but how much is that driving your winning? This roster just feels, and Robert Williams is there too, just like bizarre how many like quality centers they have right now. This roster is kind of out of balance. It's not particularly good. The young guards really have, I think, still a lot to prove, particularly Scoot. And I also just don't think Chauncey Billups is that good of a coach. I've never been a particularly big Billups guy as a coach. I think this feels like a job that come next year feels like if I could bet on one of the jobs to be open, I think Billups would seem to be a logical guy to be looking for employment next spring. And I think this team just is still kind of stuck. And I think this team, with where they're at, I think it's going to be one of. I feel like we nailed the bottom three with these picks is where I'm at right now.
I also had Portland third on my board. There's things that we like about this roster for sure. Like I'm a Scoot guy. I like Denny Avdija quite a bit. I like Delano Banton. There's players I like on this roster. None of them are help. I like Donovan Klingon. None of these guys are helping this team win a ton of games right now. They won 21 games last year. What are they going to win? 10 more games? I don't think so. Even if they do, they're a pretty good bet. That still kind of lands them in the bottom 10, even if they win 10 more games than they did last year. You already Chauncey Billups not being a great coach. He was never supposed to coach this team. He was supposed to coach a Damian Lillard team, more of a veteran team, a team that was trying to take that next step, and he kind of got stuck with this group. There's already been some rumors swirling around Portland that he could leave, and it wouldn't shock me if that eventually did happen. This is also another team that could be sellers by the trade deadline. Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, if they could ever trade him. These are all guys who could get moved between now and February, and so there's a chance that this team could tank for the last couple months of the season and really make sure they end up in the bottom 10 here. There again, players that I like here. I don't know what kind of leap Scoot is going to have to make to drag this team out of the bottom 10. It would be a leap unlike we've ever seen, probably, from a first to a second year player. So Portland's a great bet to finish in the bottom 10 here.
Scoot is kind of the object of my fascination here too, because he feels just more important in the future than like a Simons does, just because I could see Simons being dealt. And then you just look at his numbers from last year. It's like a true shooting percentage in the bottom 8% of all guards last year. Really, there's no like advanced metric he rates out in. There's no like film. There's like brief moments on film, but it is not
right. That's the
sustained.
thing. Like even the eye test was not good for him for the first few months of the year. It got better towards the end of the season. It felt like something was clicking. I just really hope whatever they do, they don't even care about the W's this year, right? Like the whole thing right now has to be making sure that Scoot Henderson is not a bust, and it's really early to start using the B word. Probably too early, but that's your job if you're Portland, is to be like, we got to make sure we position this guy to be successful in the NBA so that he can be maybe a franchise player for us going forward. Pairing him with this group has not been awesome. I don't think Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons taking
All the reps
and stuff from him is helping. Shaden Sharp to me does make sense as a Scoot Henderson running mate. So does Denny Avdia as sort of a second side ball creator. DeAndre Ayton is not that guy. Donovan Clingan could be that guy. Robert Williams III, when he's on the court and available, could be helpful for him as a backline defender and a rim roll threat. But they need to clean up some of this roster. And I think in a very serious way. I understand Joe Cronin, their general manager, not wanting to sell low on some of these guys that the previous front office had invested quite a bit in, and that the franchise itself has invested quite a bit of time into. I get that, but you need to make sure that you've got the right environment around Scoot, because that's the most important asset that you have right now is just him, because you don't know where you're going to be picking next June.
And look, if they're really bad this year, but Clingan is good and Scoot takes step forward because he has 3 centers to throw lobs to, and like they can just have like some baseline competency and be a team like with Avdia, with Robert Williams maybe being healthy enough to play 50, 60 games or something. Like I can feel a year, Wes, where like they're really bad, and I still feel better about where they're going.
Yep.
But it's all on Scoot. It's all on what Clingan is, and it's about like if you're in position to get a flag. I mean, the weird part for them too, I'll just say, if you look at the draft next year, there's 2 big wing. Like this team just like screaming for a big wing creator. The top 3 projected prospects: Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey from Rutgers, and Dylan Harper also from Rutgers. Shout out to Rutgers, I guess, in the NIL collectives. 6'6" and above. Like that is this is a good year for Portland to go get a differentiating kind of piece and get someone on the wing to be something.
It's a great point, because of the 3 teams that we've already talked about, by April of those 3 teams, we might feel that we're probably going to feel the best about Portland, because they already have one guy, where you can't really say that about the Nets or necessarily the Wizards. And it feels like Portland, if Scoot pans out and he looks good in his sophomore year, you could say that about Portland by the end of the season. All right. I think those are the 3 teams that I feel the best about landing the worst record. I think that's a pretty clear group. This next group is almost like another tier.